Exactly. What is up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Granny's PhD, episode 185 for those who are counting. And we are finally going to be discussing the MCU Captain America today. 185 episodes in, but we are starting as we count down to the release of Captain America Brave New World. We'll be talking about the Captain America trilogy over the next 3 weeks. So excited to kick this off today. And we also got episode 2 of season 5 of Harley Quinn that dropped this week. But Saturday morning action here. Thanks for joining us as always. If you joined us on the Facebook live stream, if you're joining us on YouTube, or wherever you find the audio of the podcast, we always appreciate the support. I am Ed. With me is Jason. As always, Jason, what's up, man? What's going on?
Happy Saturday afternoon, everyone. Very excited. We're covering a cartoon Saturday morning. One might say we are bringing back Saturday morning cartoons. I hope all you boys and girls out there have your Captain Crunch. And you know, it's howdy doody time, guys.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting because there was so many ways to go with the intro today. But there was an idea of maybe Spider-Man is Amazing Friends opening or something along that line.
Oh, that's cool.
Captain America. I thought about hitting you with that curveball, but then I'm like, I don't know. We're never going to use Star Spangled Man again, most likely. So I gotta.
Yeah, that's a great song actually. I really enjoy. We'll get to it, but I really enjoyed that fucking montage with that song in the movie. But it's really great. And I'm wondering if Star Spangled Man would be a song in the Rogers musical. I was thinking that while it was playing, like, is it a song that is it a diegetic song or it is in the MCU? So they absolutely it is in the fucking Rogers musical, right?
Yeah, I fully agree with you. There's no doubt about it that Star Spangled Man or a cover of Star Spangled Man was done in that, because again, this is a song within it, because even Tommy Lee Jones, his character, even mentions it at one point.
That's right, he does.
When Steve goes up to him, he's like, well, it's the Star Spangled Man, what is your plan? Only as the way he has to deliver it.
Yes, 100%. Because I think, all right, I'm gonna admit something here I've never admitted to anyone.
Ooh, okay.
I think about Rogers the musical a lot since it was posited. Because as a lover of musicals, I want to know what songs are in it, what parts of his life are they covering, like, because in putting a musical together, you choose the songs based on high emotional points. So, like, Star Spangled Man is just Captain America: First Avenger with songs, right? So I think about what that music would be a lot.
That's great. I know that they have Avengers Campus in the Disney Disney World or Land. I always get them confused, in California, which is why I've never been to that one, and I really want to go to that one. Obviously for Avengers.
That's
Campus,
cool.
Star Wars stuff. Like I want to do all of that crap there. But they had Rogers the musical at one point. I don't know if it was forever, but I know they had it, which is what I wanted to check that out.
Oh, all right. Now I gotta scour the internet to see if I could find what was involved in that.
Yeah, as you know, and I'm not one who likes musicals, but I mean, the whole Rogers the musical is hilarious. Like it's such a great idea. It's something that you can enjoy as a musical fan, as a Marvel fan. Like you don't have to like musicals to appreciate good patriotic songs about the most American guy there is. Exactly, it's true. Yeah, and it's I don't know. It was a lot of fun. But I'll hold off on my thoughts on this. I know we're going to get to it shortly. We have
we'll get to it.
We have a lighter docket for us, even though we're going to be pretty busy for the next month after this. But we get a little bit of the calm before the storm today. But nonetheless, still exciting to get into. But all right, I guess let's go ahead and kick things off then with Harley Quinn Season 5, Episode 2. Let me drop across the spoiler ticker on the bottom because you haven't seen it yet. We're going to be discussing it in all its spoilery glory. So, Jason, what do we got here in Harley Quinn? Because we had two really opposite ends of the spectrum with this show and this movie this week.
We did. All right, so the show does what it normally does and kind of branches off into two different episodes, two different arcs of the episode. Harley's and Ivy's. They're living in Metropolis now, and they're about to have sex on every piece of furniture of their new apartment when, ding dong, King Shark is here, and he's got all of his kids, and I love that they go, "Oh, you came all the way to Metropolis for for a date?" He went, "No, I moved to Metropolis as well. The interest rates are down, and it's good schools for the kids. They have a Dutch immersion program."
It's great that they're. You know what's funny with this is that it's how convenient. It's just so funny because it's how conveniently they're shifting all the characters to Metropolis from Gotham just so this season can happen, and it doesn't matter. It's all good.
Absolutely. Well, no, but that's the joke of it too, because when we see Bane later, he says the same exact thing about why he moved to Metropolis, word for word. So it's like that's them going, "Yeah, this is convenient. Just shut up and it's a fucking show, you know."
just go with it. Ironically, it's also why I've had, like, when Jerry moved his family to Long Island, that was like the same speech.
Was it?
Oh, the schools and all of this. That's when I laughed even harder when I watched this, because I was like, I feel like I've heard this before.
It's so funny, yeah. I mean, I love that moment, and so this is where we diverge. I'll do Harley's story first because I think it's the least interesting of the two. Harley is stuck babysitting like 6 or 7 ravenous little fucking sharks and decides to bring them to a birthday party in this fancy, ritzy club. And you find out that it's Goldilocks' birthday party. Bane has adopted her officially. We got our Bane.
We did. I love the fact that they picked up that storyline that was set up in Kite Man, because we just talked last week, right, about the connections with Kite Man and Harley Quinn, but they ran right with it. That was cool to see. Right.
With it, Goldilocks is in this show, so I thought that was awesome. I'm glad we get our good friend Bane back. And so pretty much that storyline is really quick. It's to go over. It's not much going on. Is Harley tries to ditch the sharks at first to find the owner of the club to convince him to let her join because it's exclusive and she likes to get into exclusive things that wouldn't normally want her. The sharks go on a feeding frenzy at the party and take off a bunch of limbs of people. Yeah. Princess Peppa's waving arm is gone. And then like the officers come in and trank the sharks. Harley has the moment of like, "Those are my god sharks," and madness ensues. And then Alina Luthor comes and like, "Okay, well, this is fixed." And that's kind of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's more or less what happens, because I do agree with you that the more interesting thing is Ivy's storyline throughout this episode, because we basically get the Ivy origin that we never got in this show before.
Yeah, and I thought I didn't see that coming. I thought that was like at first, I thought that was cool. We also get the origin of Frank.
Yep.
Which I thought that was fun. Before we move on though to that one, do you think Lena Luthor has some ulterior evil motives here?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Something's wrong. It's way. Is it for a show that jokes around about convenience and will like wink and acknowledge it and it's fine? You roll with it. No, Lena's up to some shit. And I also, in the end, think that, and it's what the characters think of them, but I think it's the truth. And even though we didn't see it in Supergirl, Lena Luthors are up to some shit. So Lena Luthor's definitely up to some shit. Yep.
All right. I thought so too. I just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page. But that's the Harley storyline. It was fine. I wasn't crazy about it, but the meat and potatoes of this episode, what makes this episode real good is the Ivy storyline, because Ivy goes and meets with Lena Luthor's connection, the doctor who she's going to work with, and well, you find out that it was her professor in college, and they had an affair. and he tried to steal her research. And when she wouldn't let him, he locked her in the lab and gassed her, and like was going to let her die with poison. And the only reason she doesn't is because she gets the serum that brought Frank to life and that will make her poison ivy, and she jabs herself with it and makes herself poison ivy. Which I was like, wow, that's fucking dark. I mean, I get why Pamela went to crime after this.
Absolutely. I found, like we do often laud this show for is wacky and zany and all the other stuff and crude humor and everything else that it has. That you've always said too is that it does, these people, the writers, understand the comics, right? Like they're still being respectful to the comics while still having a lot of fun with it and pushing the envelope at times a lot. But this was an interesting origin story for this version of Ivy. And you're right. And I think what it lends itself into the current day is really interesting with this character, because we haven't really seen Ivy be like legitimately evil in quite some time, at least. Or I'm trying to remember in the show, when was the last time she was legitimately like a villain? Because she straight up murders the guy later.
She does, but I will argue when we get there that she was in the right, and
she absolutely
he had his fucking.
He got revenge. I'm not disputing that at all.
Yeah, but I actually posit I don't think Ivy's ever been evil. Ivy's been a villain, but even when last season when she was the literal head of evil villainy, her whole initiative was green-based villainy. It was like eco-terrorism, which isn't good. But I don't think it makes her evil. I don't think she's evil in this show.
No, but that's why I was a bit surprised. I don't disagree with the revenge factor. And listen, most people put in that situation are going to get their revenge. You tried to kill me, I'm going to fucking kill you. And that's the way it is, But it was just more of the fact she acknowledges being a villain, like at that point. She does have a line in this where she says, like you kind of turned me into a villain and all this other stuff and blah, blah, blah. But she does kill the guy. Like, it looks like she's going to give mercy, and then she straight up murders the guy. Well, yeah. To an extent. Yes, to an extent. With the ending, but.
Yeah. But, all right, so what I like about that is she comes and she goes, you know what? I'm going to put it behind me. We're going to work together. We got work to do. And then he's like, all right, well, what kind of part of the operation you want to see first? And she goes, the lab. And you find that last that we heard, they had sex in the lab, right? Or which the lab had sex, and you think, oh, okay. And he's even like, oh, okay. And she gets him there. Oh, and the second they're in the lab, she fucking turns. She throws up puts up the door, hangs him up with vines. And he's like, I'm sorry, give me a chance. And she's like, all right, I'll give you the chance you gave me. And she fucking locks him in and gasses him.
Yeah. She instantly, and I guess, we knew as the audience where that was going, right? Like we knew that she was going to get her revenge and that was going to be that.
Yeah.
I didn't think there was any chance she was legitimately going to screw around and rekindle that, old flame at all. But yeah, she even has a great line too, because she's like, he says something about like you're full of surprises or something like that, and she's like, you have no idea, and like does this kind of like wink thing, and then you know what's coming. She's getting her shit.
Yeah.
I did think though, I'm gonna be honest, I did wonder for a second if she was going to actually like give him some time to work together and to try to, put it past her, but no, she goes straight up, basically does the same exact thing back then.
Yeah, when she says, you know what, I think I can put it past me. I was like, okay. I had the same thought you had. Maybe she's going to give him some time, see what happens. This was also before we know what he did to her. Like they very carefully don't show what happened and why Ivy hates him so much until right before she's about to kill him. So at that point, you're like, yeah, absolutely. She might just be giving him a shot. This is money, right? She's moving here to Metropolis. And so what? They slept together. It couldn't have ended that badly. And then you see what happened. And it's like, no, there's no way there's no way she's letting this go, and B, there's no way she's cheating on Harley.
No, not at all. No, there's absolutely no way. And it is interesting too that Harley and Ivy both had run-ins with their, male exes that were fucking evil. Like,
yes,
Joker, obviously. Enough said. Despite the Halloween costumes himself, enough said. He's fucking Joker.
Yes, it's the Joker.
And yeah, that's all. If you're in a relationship with the Joker, you play stupid games, you get stupid prizes. That's just essentially how this works.
Yeah, absolutely.
And but then Ivy, though, she has her situation where she had this relationship with one of her professors, and he tries to fucking steal Frank and steals her and take credit for her accomplishments, and then tries to murder her for it. I mean, really fucked up. Really fucked up.
Yeah, as if trying to steal her research wasn't enough. Just out and up murdering. That's evil. Stealing the research, unethical and wrong. Trying to murder someone for their research, just evil.
Yeah. So, evil spawning off. I mean, listen, we're going to assume Ivy's evil on some levels, right? Like, we haven't seen it in the show. It's not portrayed in the show very much. But we're going to just assume evil happened at some point because she's a Batman villain named Poison Ivy.
Yes. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure her, like the Joker, like the Riddler, like every fucking villain in Gotham at one point attempted to poison the water supply to kill everyone in Gotham. I mean, which I think they made a joke about that in the last episode, like with all the people trying to poison the water supply.
Yes. Yeah, it's just the way it is. You got Lex has his real estate shit, and all the villains in Gotham go after the water supply.
Every one of them. Even Bane, I'm sure. I don't know what he does there. Maybe he just bathes there. I don't know what Bane would do to the water supply, but
I don't know. That's interesting. Would he mix in his venom?
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe. You're right. He'd mix in the venom.
Yeah, there you go. He can find some way to attack it.
Exactly. Stupid water, our natural enemy.
Aquaman. I'm going to take out Aquaman at the same time.
Yeah. I'll get you, Aquaman, and your precious water. But yeah, so that's pretty much the episode. Did I miss anything?
Well, the ending, though, when we find out he survives the accident,
right?
And we see his hand with the watch.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Back with something.
So we've got our villain of the season, I guess.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, they're setting up somebody. I don't know who though, because we've met Swamp Thing in this already.
Yes, we have.
Right? So we can't even say he's going to be Swamp Thing. I don't know. I'm interested.
I don't know. Yeah, let's. Same. I'm same. Let's see. I'm curious where they go. I mean, I think all in all, good episode. Fun, really fun, and dark.
I agree. Fun episode. The Harley stuff is the fun, and then the meat and potatoes of it is the Ivy story. So pretty straightforward, but good stuff though. Right. Then this will bring us right away to our movie of the week. Then, as we are getting ready to count down to Captain America: Brave New World, which drops in a couple of weeks, we decided let's go ahead and get to another sub-franchise in the MCU that we've never gotten around to. And Jason, by the way, for the record, this is one of the 3 franchises we haven't touched yet. Once we do, we've actually covered the entire MCU, like the entire MCU.
Yeah, what do we have? This, Iron Man, and the Avengers, right? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
holy shit.
I know. The thing is, we spread them out so much. I think we didn't realize that we knocked them all out. But
yeah.
That's it.
All right. No. Wow. Well, we got to do the Avengers soon. I'm really but the Avengers has to be the last one we do. I think.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think this year let's get to Iron Man and we'll get to Avengers and then we will be completely caught up on the MCU in its entirety. We've covered at that point it'll be all the movies, all the shows, everything. Every piece of the MCU we have touched upon. So but yeah, here we are. We're gonna go back to I cannot believe that it is back to I'm going to just take a cheat sheet on July 2011 is when this movie came out. This movie's 14 years old.
Wow. Like I got to admit, I was nostalgic watching this for an America that still hated Nazis. I was really nostalgic. I mean, I used to say that Nazis were the best villains because they were just evil and everyone hated them. How could you like a Nazi? And I can't say that anymore. And now it's like, oh man, watching this, Captain America, thank you, sir, for reminding me of when America was truly America.
Oh, Jesus, that is great. Yeah, the timing up of this film is, I promise you, was not planned with anything than current events. But
yeah, the only thing it's planned it for is we want to do it to go up to Falcon America.
Yeah, basically. Man, good thing we're not on X anymore.
Oh yeah, no, Elon be coming for us. He'd be trying to scalp us.
So I will think back to I remember when this movie was announced. Like remember it was right after the success of Iron Man when he announced that they're gonna go Marvel Studios was like we're here, we're gonna announce the Avengers. We're gonna do an Avengers movie, we're gonna introduce the characters, here's all the solo movies. They announced phase 1, right? Like at that point. And it was just about forming the Avengers Assemble, essentially. And I remember I was like, holy shit, Captain America, okay, that's cool. Growing up, I was never the biggest Captain America guy, to be completely honest with you. I always saw him as kind of like the Boy Scout guy who was kind of corny and everything like that. But I remember when I read Civil War, comic book Civil War, I was like,
I'm laughing because I was about to tell the exact same fucking story.
Are you serious? Are you serious?
Yes.
Holy shit, dude. That is wild. I swear we've never discussed this.
No, we haven't. But yeah, I couldn't give a shit about Captain America until Civil War.
Yeah, until you read Civil War, right? Again, and Jason, our comic book tastes are very similar, where, Spider-Man, Batman, and then you have this like Captain America guy who we read about it in like Infinity Gauntlet and stuff, and he was cool in that, but like, okay, like still whatever, like not a guy who I was super interested in. And in like crossover stuff is when I would like, okay, Captain America, fine. But reading Civil War, I remember it was kind of like 40-Year-Old Virgin. I was like, man, I always thought Cap was kind of like the Streisand, but man, he's fucking shit in this thing. Right, like Paul Rudd's character, like, he sees Matt Damon when he sees Born Identity. It's kind of how I felt, and I'm like, badass. Okay.
I will tell you the exact fucking panel that I started to like really like Captain America, and it's when it's in Civil War. It's when they're on the helicarrier, and they're like, no, Captain, we're gonna do this registration. He's like, no, you're not. It's un-American. I'm not in on it. And they go, well, there's nothing you can do. And he literally fucking jumps out of the helicarrier onto, like, he fights his way up, jumps out of the helicarrier, gets on like a smaller jet, commandeers the jet, and flies away. And I'm like, Captain America does that? Like, I thought for sure he'd be bootlicking this because he's, the American Boy Scout. But he's like, no, American ideals over national pride. Let's go.
Yeah, and that's the fascinating thing about the character is that I think people who don't read the comics, right, and don't really understand who Captain America is as a character, they do see it as, he's basically the patriotic Boy Scout who will just do whatever he's told by, the current, regime and everything like that, in power. And he just would kind of go along with anything. But he is more of you're right. You said it perfectly. He is about the ideals of America versus you're right versus whatever you know in whatever bullshit is going on essentially at the time, right? Like that's
it's not about it's not about current politics. It's about the ideals that we set forth that we want to strive for. It's not about like Republican, Democrat. It's not about, oh, yes, I think it's good to go into, incursions with third world countries for oil. He's not about that. He hates all that because all of that technically is un-American. If you look at the theory of what America wanted to be.
Mm-hmm. So, and that's what I think is interesting. And I do remember, and I don't want to dive into it too much because I think we could save that part of the conversation for next week when we get to Captain America Winter Soldier. I felt like when Captain America Winter Soldier and Civil War came out, people were taken for a little bit of a loop where like, oh, wait, Captain America is anti-establishment? What? Because, the establishment he felt was like going away from the ideals. So he was like, someone's got to stand for it. Like, this is what I do. This is my thing.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, we can table that because we have a lot to dig into with the next.
Yeah, we got a lot of movie for this today.
Yeah, but for as far as this goes, I do remember too when Chris Evans was cast as Captain America, and I thought to myself, really, Chris Evans, the dude that was Johnny Storm, which ironically, obviously, we see it differently now, and
yes,
and not another teen movie, and this shit, really. And I looked into it. I'm like, I just took a good look at him. I remember in a picture, and I'm like, all right, I think I could see it. We'll see his acting chops, though, for sure, because we always saw him as like this smart-ass, renegade, kid and stuff like that. And that's why I think I'm so pleasantly surprised and why I laud his portrayal of Captain America in the MCU, because he goes exactly against everything I knew about him going into it.
Yeah, absolutely. He is playing a character type that I have never seen him play before this. Because, not another teen movie. He's kind of the jock, the asshole. Johnny Storm is very much the asshole. And wasn't he even in Scott Pilgrim? Didn't he play a similar role in Scott Pilgrim Saves the World?
Yep, he was.
So he's made his bread and butter playing assholes and antagonists and or like good protagonists who are assholes. But like, honestly, of course, Robert Downey Jr., but if you were to ask me which role I thought he'd be more suited for before the MCU got started, I would have said Tony Stark, because that's kind of what he was doing in the past, right? But he goes 180, and he nails it perfectly. There's no trace of asshole in his performance.
No, not at all. He's extremely endearing in this. He's very, he's like a nice dude and everything like that. And he's got an incredible amount of heart. And that comes through on screen in his portrayal of Steve Rogers from the moment we meet him and throughout. And that's, the through line of the story of Steve Rogers is in this film, at least, because I think his overall arc we can get into, because I also think the Steve Rogers arc and the Tony Stark arc are obviously the two biggest arcs that we follow throughout their solo films and throughout the Avengers films. Like Steve's thing of him waking up, like he has these ideals, going into it before he gets the super soldier serum. He gets it. He gets to physically carry out what he always wanted to do. He gets, validated and stuff. He earns every fucking thing he gets. And then once he wakes up in the current day, then it's almost like a rude awakening. And the next two films and the Avengers movies, when he sees, and there's a really great scene with him and Nick Fury at the beginning of the Avengers that has to do with that. That kind of really hits that spot on. And again, we can dive into that more when eventually. But as far as this movie goes, Chris Evans' performance is just it's awesome. He made me the Captain America is my favorite MCU Avenger. I love Spider-Man. If you guys follow the show, you know how much I love Spider-Man. He's always been my favorite character. Love Tom Holland's Spider-Man. But as far as the MCU goes, and especially the OG Avengers, fucking Captain America is the fucking man. Like he's awesome. He's a fascinating character.
I agree. He's a very fascinating character, and I think he's not my favorite, clearly, because Robert Downey Jr. and Iron Man, but he's probably ironic. The most interesting. Yes, very ironic.
It's ironic that I would choose Cap and then you would choose Tony Stark. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I think you're the Captain America of the show. I'm the Tony Stark. You come with truth, justice, and the Granny's peach tea way, and I get drunk and make comments.
Oh, that's funny. And then Rick's Hawkeye.
And Rick is 100%, and he loves it. He requested to be Hawkeye. We wanted to make him someone else. He was like, "No, fuck you, I'm Hawkeye."
Exactly. You could have been Thor, Rick, but then you chose Hawkeye.
But I definitely think Captain America is the most interesting of the characters because he has that man at a time thing, and they don't let you forget it. Like, it's not really part of this movie, so again, that's something we'll talk about in the future. But after this movie, after he wakes up in the present, the wonderful present of 2011, when Nazis were still the enemy, they never let you forget that he is a man out of time.
Yeah.
And like that even ties into the resolution of his character in Endgame, because how does he resolve his character? Well, he goes back to the time that he fell out of.
Yeah.
So I think he's definitely the most interesting.
Yeah, no, he is. They end up nailing a perfect symmetry, like a full circle thing with his arc, like to the T.
Yeah.
And the thing, like, he is essentially he's the heart of of the Avengers when it comes down to that, like the strategic guy and everything like that. And again, him and Tony butting heads at times, down the road. But it's so interesting too because Howard Stark is such a big part of important part of this film, and the Super Soldier Project and everything like that, and working with Dr. Erskine and everything. And it is funny that he he rose up with Howard Stark, and plays a big part, and then eventually, obviously, his son, who is a bit different, from the father down the line.
Yeah, I think that parallel is cool. So we have a very heavy Stark presence in this movie, even though it's Tony Stark's dad. And yeah, it's cool that, like, all right, so Tony Stark's dad had a big role in my evolution as Captain America. I mean, huge. He flies the plane that allows him to save Bucky and the rest of the gang, which is what gets him instated as an actual soldier and not like a USO performer. So, Howard Stark is directly tied to his evolution as Captain America. And then he goes to the future, and Tony Stark is directly tied to his evolution as an Avenger.
And also gives him a personal piece of advice after, Steve mentions fondue to,
yes.
in a plane thinks that he doesn't really has no fucking idea. He thinks fondue is some sort of like sexual escapade or something like that. But it's just like, dude, it's cheese, man. It's fine. We're just gonna grab some
cheese.
Yeah, just don't worry about it. It's like if you ever think that you know what a woman's thinking, then that's where you're truly lost, man.
I'm going to posit an unpopular theory after watching this movie. So I do believe that Captain America fell head over heels for Agent Carter, right? And I believe all of that. But I think the reason he never talked to women before is because he was in love with Bucky. Because I'm sorry, I'm not trying just to stir shit up. But Ed, I love you. We've become super close over this doing this podcast, right? Our friendship goes back to high school. We know each other a long time. If you find yourself stuck behind enemy lines, I'm not commandeering a plane and coming after you. He wasn't going after the whole platoon. He was like, if that's where Bucky Barnes is, that's where I'm going. He gets down there, and when he gets to the platoon, the first thing he says, "Where's Bucky Barnes?" I think he's kind of in love with Bucky Barnes.
Well, I mean, listen, I think he's listen. That's his brother. That's just what it is. Listen, if we injected you with super soldier serum, I think you would do it.
Nazis, yeah, I guess Nazis I would, but I don't know if but again, in this day and age, Ed, I might be brought up for treason if I did that. Jesus. It's the last one, I promise. It's the last one. I couldn't help myself.
It's tough. It's tough. No, I did want to bring that up though, because like we could briefly talk about the beginning of the film where we get the at least we'll talk about Cap's part, and I do want to talk about the Red Skull in this a lot, because I really stand by the fact that he is this movie is one of the most underrated MCU films in my opinion, and the Red Skull is one of the most underrated MCU villains. 100% in my opinion.
Agreed. And I think it's because he never came back, like except for like that brief cameo at the end of the arc, but. Like, we lose him after this. And Hugo Weaving was like, I'm hard out. I'm never doing this again. And Hugo Weaving is what makes his performance so good. Like, that man he might be evil. I don't know if anyone is that good of an actor.
Yeah, he's done a lot of evil. He always is playing. That's why he, around this time is when he was hanging him up from playing main villains in big franchise films. He felt he was getting typecast. But sometimes you're really fucking great at what you're great at, and just lean into it and just have some fun. But
and he is.
He is. But back to the Cap and Bucky thing. So when we meet them, Cap is skinny Cap, little Steve Rogers and stuff like that. He gets rejected from the army a bunch of times. They want nothing to do with him and everything like that. And even though he keeps trying, he's going through applying different ways, can't get in. Bucky gets accepted into the army. He's in. He's got his orders, and that's when Steve gets knows that he's in the 107, and he goes off, and then Bucky does his thing, and then Cap, we see though, he gets into a fight in an alley for sticking up. By the way, for somebody talking during a fucking movie, during a trailer of a movie, that didn't speak to you.
Dude, if I were in that audience and I saw that fight going out, I'd have jumped that guy from behind the second he hit Cap. I'd have snuck out. Like I'm not going to get into a fair fight over that, but I'll jump a guy from behind while he's picking on Captain America to help Captain America out, because shut the fuck up during movies, people.
Yeah, that's another thing. That's what cracked me up though, because you got the guy making these stupid comments, but he's also sticking up for what he believes is right there. And also, they're doing a recruiting thing, and this is something he really wants, like with every fiber of his being at that point. And then he does go ahead and meets he meets Dr. Erskine, right? Like he gets a hold of him and stuff like that, and he sees who he is, and he decides he's the guy. Dr. Erskine chooses him. Stanley Tucci's Dr. Erskine, who ironically actually commented on this role just like a week or two ago. And I believe it was
really?
In Variety. He did. He said he had a great time in the MCU. He'd love to come back whenever they would call him, but he understands there's not really much of a reason to for him to come back. His character's long gone. But he lauded it and everything like that, and was happy about it. Also another great supporting character in this movie, one of many. Stanley Tucci's Dr. Erskine. He has he's just phenomenal, this man.
He's phenomenal. I love that scene when he brings in the schnapps. That's actually one of my favorite scenes in the movie. And he's like, "Oh, what am I thinking? You can't have fluids, And he's like, "All right, so we'll do it after." He's like, "Oh, I don't have an operation tomorrow. I can drink."
Exactly. And then it gets referenced in the next scene where he's like, he's like, "Did you save me any of those schnapps?" He's like, "I probably more than not as much as I should have."
Yeah, that was awesome. Before we move on too far, though, I do want to say that watching this movie, and this is another Nazi joke, I promise. It made me nostalgic for two things. One, back when the 40s was like the Wild West compared to now. If you literally could just go town to town, just lying to the government about like, no, I'm Steve Rogers and I don't want you to take me, but I'm from Paramus. I'm not that Steve Rogers from Brooklyn. And they just go, all right. Like, my God, you try that now with the central database, he would have been arrested. This movie would have been over in 2 minutes.
Exactly. It would have been one of those like 2 frames and then like end credits.
Exactly. So super nostalgic for the simpler times, and super nostalgic for when it was hard to get in the military. I mean, now I don't think any of that stuff would they would stop you. They'd be like, you're fine. We got a forever war going on. Get him in here. Come on, scrawny.
Yeah, you got a warm body. Let's go. We'll
right.
take it. We can work with that. So yeah, we get that, and you're right. That is a great scene with the schnapps and everything like that. And he gets the super soldier serum. We get that thing. He's met Peggy Carter, and on the way to that operation, him and Peggy meet in the sense that we start seeing their relationship start to kick off, right? Like they have the scene on the base where she sees him getting shut down, but then you get a ride back with Peggy Carter if you get that pole down. And he's like, well, I physically can't do it, but guess what? I'm going to show you strategic Captain America, and I'm going to knock the pole down and get the flag, and then it starts to show. Like, all right, this is the guy that we need. Like Erskine sees a lot of what the qualities in him, and he always references like his heart. Like he's the guy who's got the brains and the heart. He just needs the physical tools to be able to carry out the super soldier that we want. Even though Tommy Lee Jones, who we also meet around this point in the movie, he's Chester Phillips. He shits on Rogers every chance he fucking gets. Like every single time. And it's really fucking funny. He's just like, like you can tell he doesn't want anything to do with him. But Rogers
he tells Erskine, he says, so you brought a skinny asthmatic on my base. When you did, I said sure, because, well, it was for a laugh. But I never for once thought you were really considering him as a candidate. Like I'm paraphrasing, but that's pretty much what he says to him. And
he's like, Erskine says, well, he's the clear choice. This other dude who's the asshole of the brigade, sure, he has all the physical tools and all the other stuff, but it's like he keeps pointing at the heart. It's like he doesn't have it. He needs, this is what he needs. And we learn further in the movie why Erskine is also stressing that so much because of what happened with Red Skull and his original, his original patient with this.
And Erskine does say, like, it doesn't just make you stronger, the serum, it brings out what is innately in you. So if you're good, it brings that out and it makes you better. But if you're bad, it brings that out and makes you worse. And so, it makes it very clear why he's focused on Steve Rogers.
Exactly. And Steve also does a great thing in there where, where Phillips goes ahead and throws the grenade, right?
I love that part.
Yeah, like the dummy grenade gets thrown there, everyone's scattering, and he jumps on it. He's willing to take it for everybody.
Yeah, and that's a cool moment where he jumps on it and he's holding. He's like, "Go, get back!" And then you have that slow realization that it's not going off that he has, and I thought that was really cool because him adding that in the performance shows that this wasn't a strategic thought. His first gut reaction was to put himself in the line of danger to save others. And there was no forethought. The forethought comes after it doesn't explode. And it's like, oh, okay, so it's not real. But I think that's such a great character moment. And that's why this moment is the moment that the movie pins on. Yeah, this is when we all agree it's him.
Yeah. And also previously, before the scene when he gets into the alley fight earlier with the guy who was talking during the movie, and we see the foreshadowing of him grabbing the shield, as the garbage can, as the shield, and he's fighting him. And that's when we get the first, I can do this all day. When he's taking the beating in the alley.
I didn't realize that line came back so many times in this movie. It was I liked it. It worked, but I forgot that it kept coming back.
Yeah, it's a huge part of the character. Yeah, and obviously we get that later on in Avengers Endgame where, the payoff with it. Just so many things that movie ties back into this one. And also, this movie does so much world building for the MCU. Now, when you really look back on it, it's wild how important this movie is.
When we get to Tesseract, it's the first mention of the Tesseract, which is as we know now, the first mention of the Thanos Infinity Stones.
Yep, that happens too, and we see him. Well, I'll save that for Red Skull, but yeah, the world building is wild, and even further on in the movie, when Bucky falls off the train in Germany, think about that one scene, that one moment. If Bucky doesn't fall and get captured by Hydra, that's a what if that you needed to go.
Yeah, right. But not the cartoon what if, because they would have posited that Peggy Carter would have become the Winter Soldier, but she would have been good because she's Jesus.
But think about it though. That one moment, right, when Bucky falls off the train, basically Winter Soldier doesn't happen. Right? The next movie essentially doesn't happen. And Civil War goes a completely different way. Probably more closer to the comic book version of Civil War.
Yep. Absolutely. And it also something big on that train. If they don't capture Arnim Zola, he's not there in the future as a computer to aid Underground Hydra. So I don't know. Maybe if things with the what if is, if Arnim Zola got away and Bucky never fell off the train, maybe Hydra doesn't infiltrate the United States. Maybe actually it would have been a better thing in the overall that they couldn't have possibly known, which is what I wish they did with those what if cartoons, because that would have been fun.
Yeah. But so we also got like when Steve gets injected and everything like that, and he gets the super soldier serum, and then we get more moments. Him and Peggy have that conversation in the car where he's talking about he's never danced. This is the longest conversation he's ever had with a woman as well. And you can tell, you can see things are starting to get going, right? Like they're starting to get that feeling. She sees him jump on a grenade and do the other thing. So she's seeing what kind of a person he really is, besides being as skinny and small as he is. And then when she sees him after the super soldier serum, she's like, the total package has arrived.
Oh yeah, she was like, I was interested before you looked like Chris Evans, but now you look like Chris Evans. I'm in.
Yeah, and yes, she was like, listen, that's it. Seal the deal. Let's go. And they have that chase scene also afterwards, where the Hydra agent takes out Dr. Erskine. He escapes, and there's that first chain where Steve chases him on foot, literally barefoot through the city. I think that's I want
to point out the coolest part of that scene for me is because he is new at this, right? He doesn't, and one could argue, and I'm not, but and internet trolls wouldn't because he's a man. But if this was a female character, people would be like, Mary Sue, where do you get the training? Blah, blah, blah. I'm per person. I don't need the fucking training. I don't need that. But I just want to call out that if this were a female character, he'd be called a Mary Sue. But
of course,
what I like though is he gets up and he goes running out. Yeah, how does he know how to operate his body that big? Who cares? It's a fun comic book movie. But they don't ignore that completely, because there's a moment where he literally just fucking dips into falls headfirst into a glass thing in the shop, and then comes right back out and keeps running. And it's like, the only reason to do that is to show, he's still kind of getting used to this body and these abilities. And I appreciate that, because this is a big movie. I don't want a 20-minute training montage, right? Mm-hmm. But I like that the writers and the filmmakers were like, you know what? We're going to just pepper in there he's still green. He's working through this, but we're not going to let it inhibit the action scene. And again, that's really masterful work when it comes to balancing action and character, and superhero versus reality. And again, I'm calling this out for it. That one moment I watched and I went, that's my favorite part of this chase, and this is an awesome chase.
It is. It's a really cool chase, and you're right. That's good. Kudos for calling that out there because he just got this brand new body, this speed, this power. He doesn't know, like he's just learning how to use it on the fly, and eventually does chase the guy down and stuff. He gives himself, he kills himself there, and then we get the, the Hydra line of, cut off two, cut off one head, two shall take its place, and this escape there. And
before we move on from that, though, before we move on from this scene, I do want to just point out two things. One, Agent Carter was ready to go to hell that day because she stood in front of that car with the Hydra guy. She wasn't moving. Had Steve Rogers not pushed her out of the way, she'd be dead. She's standing there, stone cold, trying to hit this guy in the fucking head with her gun. Love that moment. Great character moment. And I also love the moment where the Hydra guy realizes that it bullets. He throws the kid in the water and continues to run. And Cap has the moment of, who do I save? And the kid's like, no, I can swim. Just go. That's a fun moment. Yeah. Because we're all like, oh, we threw a kid in the water. Oh, my God, he's going to drown. But no, kids that age can swim.
Yeah, I'm good. It's all good there. And then they make the choice to throw him into the USO because, again, like basically Phillips isn't like totally sold and was like, oh, you're just one guy. You're not enough. So it doesn't really see the value. Still doesn't see the value in Steve Rogers just yet. He's still not fully sold on him.
Yeah, but stupid. I'm sorry, Tommy Lee Jones, stupid. Because if I just saw this guy do what Steve Rogers just did, like, all right, so he didn't catch the Hydra guy because the Hydra killed himself. That's not his fault. Like, I'd be like, oh no, you're my assassin now, Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, he's the guy that you would. I agree. I don't think it was the smartest moment. To me, it just spoke on that he's still not sold on him yet because we do get the moment when he fully is sold on him, and that's a big moment in the film. So
it is.
When we throw him into the USO, he becomes his self-proclaimed dancing monkey essentially because they're sending him around the world. Yeah, sketching it in that point, which I thought was really cool because he's not being treated like a real soldier. Like the recruitment department decides to take him and make him because the face of it and creates the idea of Captain America, right? He gets the original suit that we see from the comics and stuff, and he's around with the USO girls, going around trying to get like donations and stuff like that. And they're sending
the famous scene of him punching Hitler is like from the comic.
Yes. There's a lot of cool stuff in that montage. It is a great montage. I mean, that's when they play Star Spangled Man.
Yep. And I personally love that. I love that during that montage, you see people reading Captain America comics.
Yes.
I love that it is acknowledging Captain America's history in the comics as kind of, anti-Nazi propaganda. Like, because they literally go, okay, we're going to use this guy as World War II propaganda. And I think that, like, the fact that the movie took time to acknowledge the character's history, because in the comic, I don't believe that happens at all. This is just for the movie. But I think it's more meta commentary on what the comic was, pre-Marvel bringing him into the Avengers. And I love that moment because it's perfect. Like, of course, that's how you would use him if you had this guy, and of course you'd make Captain America comic books because they did to promote the war in the 40s, and the meta commentary in this was so perfect.
Yeah, you're spot on with this because it's basically it was a really smart way to tie it all in together and have like real world applications. For, again, for the MCU being, the real world there.
Yeah.
And what he had. We actually, let me drop in a comment here. Bert, what's up, dude? We haven't heard from you in a while. First Avenger is one of the most earnest and feel-good MCU movies. Joe Johnson and his directing was a perfect fit for what the movie wanted to accomplish. It's one I revisit a lot. Yeah, I fully agree. We didn't get a chance to talk about it just yet, but yeah, Joe Johnson, when he was announced as the director of the film, being the dude who did The Rocketeer, that's when it was kind of like, you know something? I get an idea going into again before I saw First Adventure. I'm like, that's the kind of guy that they want. Like that's the feel of the movie.
I didn't realize he did The Rocketeer, but now that you say that, it's obvious. Like, yeah, that is the feel of this movie, and that's the feel they needed. Good point, Bert.
Yeah, that's and I felt like the MCU did this a lot in the first couple of phases, and I guess because we've critiqued it. We're not these people who are like, oh my god, the MCU is dead, yada yada yada. No, it's not. No. But we will say like some of the strategy back then is they would hire directors and writers and stuff for very specific things from their past. Like Kenneth Branagh doing, Thor made perfect sense with the theme, like the feel of that film, how you wanted it to go. So right here, Joe Johnson, boom, makes perfect sense. And the thing is true is that also I think it speaks on Phillips's decision to bench Steve Rogers. I also think makes a lot of sense because at the time he's not sold on him as a soldier. He doesn't see him as a soldier, so he sees him as a science experiment. That cool, right. You did this one fun thing, but you're not properly trained. You're none of this. That's why I think the montage covers a lot of time where it just basically is like the war's going on. He's doing these things. He's being treated as a propaganda material. You mentioned comics and stuff like that, but I would imagine he was probably getting some training during that time, right?
I'm sure
some training. Yeah, some training, not fully, because I think when he
he's in the USO, but he's also a soldier. Like they did make him a soldier, so he's not like the dancing girls where they just hire to dance. Like he's part of the crew. So yeah, he must have gone through some training.
Mm-hmm. And then at that time, though, is when he finds out that moment you mentioned earlier where he hears that, the 107 was captured. He knows that's Bucky's unit. And instantly it was like, where's Bucky? Like,
Bucky?
Where is he? I'm going to go and do all of this. I'm going to go and I'm going to save him. And that's when he has that conversation with Peggy Carter to inspire him to kind of go for it. Like you were meant for so much more than this because she believes in it. Besides like the romantic interest, she believes in Steve Rogers, the person, that he can do more than just fucking do USO stuff.
Yeah, and I want to take this time because I've been making a lot of Peggy Carter jokes. I actually think Haley Atwell is amazing in this movie. I think Peggy Carter is a phenomenal character. I make jokes because now at this point in the MCU, What If really, really, really tried to like make her bigger than people were willing to make her. But anyway, I think she's amazing. Watching this, I actually said, you know what? I think I need to go back and watch that short-lived Peggy Carter show because I really like her. She is very talented. She brings such heart and gravitas to this role and to this movie. And I kind of wish that it couldn't because, it's 7 years in the future. But I kind of wish we got more of this Agent Carter, which is why I think I want to go back and revisit that show.
That show, the 2 seasons that show lasted, I thought were pretty fucking solid, man. I got to be honest, and they're in canon. Like that happened. As we know, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's like weird. Kevin Feige wants to acknowledge it, doesn't want to acknowledge it. Yeah, it's iffy.
Yeah.
Agent Carter, those 2 seasons are 100% within canon. Like that's there. And I'm glad she got her own thing, and I'm glad she's coming back for Avengers Doomsday. I'm curious to see in what capacity they use her, because her and Chris Evans are supposed to both be coming back for that.
Right. I'm sure
the multiverse version.
They got to be. I mean, I don't think we're going to get like proper Chris Evans, a proper Captain America, rather Steve Rogers. And if they're bringing Haley Atwell back, it's the MCU at this stage. They are 100% going to make her Agent Carter or Captain, whatever it is, Captain Carter, whatever her name is when she's the super soldier.
Yeah, that's my guess. Is it's going to be Captain Carter and not Peggy. Or unless he's going to have some sort of role, because I do wonder if he's going to play a version of Hydra Cap. That's been some people speculating. that was
That
there.
would be interesting. Yeah, that's right. They did that story, that very, very unpopular storyline.
Yeah, but I think you could do something like fun with it. But whatever, they did find out it
No,
wasn't
no.
like actual Steve Rogers, you know, and all that crap.
Right, right.
Which
No, no. It just you saying reminded me of that because I remember when that issue came out, like people were fucking mad. Like I remember reading comments like I'm Jewish and my family survived the Holocaust, and the Captain America's always been this anti-Nazi symbol. How dare you put those word Hail Hydra in his mouth? It's like it really touched a nerve in our society, and so I forgot about that until you mentioned that. But yeah, I think you're right. I think this would be the perfect time to bring like Hydra Captain America. I think this is like, he'd be great as an antagonist. And then you have Peggy Carter as Captain Carter being one of the good guys. I think that would be super cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities with that. I'm fascinated to see where that goes. But yeah, so you know, we see Steve jump into action for the first time, really, you know, like on you know, against Nazis and stuff like that too. Again, besides the chasing we see there, and he goes ahead and saves that. We get an introduction to the Howling Commandos and everything. So that's part of like Captain America lore. He saves, you know, Bucky and everything. He gets, you know, his first interaction, you know, with Red Skull in this scene too, where they have that whole like showdown.
Yeah, and that's the scene where Red Skull takes his face off because he's been wearing like this Hugo Weaving mask, and then he takes it off, and he never and I credit the movie. He never puts it back on. It's not like that Italian 70s Captain America that we saw where you get like a shot of his Red Skull, but he's got the mask on the whole time. No, Hugo Weaving is playing the Red Skull for the second half of this movie, like proper. Before we get too far though, I just want to point out because I watched this yesterday and I was super focused. So something I thought was really interesting and realistic when he frees the Howling Commandos. What's the one with the derby? The one who's the famous Howling Commando, the one with the mustache.
Oh, that's played by our good buddy Dum Dum Duggan. Neil McDonough.
There you go, Dum Dum Duggan. That's it. So I love that he goes, "Yeah, we're all Americans, sir." Well, I don't know about this guy. He points to the Asian guy, and he goes, "I'm from Fresno." And I thought that was kind of perfect commentary because anyone knows anything about World War II, it was there's nothing to fear but fear itself, and the Japanese Americans put them in internment camps. You know what I'm saying? And so it was an interesting nod that this guy was Asian. It was, I don't know about him. What are you talking about? I'm from Fresno. And that was it. But it was a nice nod to the history of what happened. So, yeah, I wanted to point that out before we got too far away from it.
No, that's also a great line that's in there, too. And we also get, like, after that whole thing happens and they have the whole standoff and there's then that cool shot where the bridge backs away and there's fire in the background and all this other stuff. And, you know, Aaron Zola's given the car to, like, escape. And then, you know, Red Skull takes his, you know, Hydra copter jet thing that he flies away into. It's when they get back and they're writing off Steve as dead, right? Because Phillips is about to do that. And then he shows up with everybody and stuff. And that's when he truly becomes Captain America. Like for real.
Yeah.
Instead of just the symbol in that moment. Because even like Bucky's like, you know, he looks at him, he's just like, let's hear it for Captain America. And then, you know, you get the whole rivalry. And he's all in. Because even before that, when Bucky sees him, it's just like, you know, is it permanent? Is it, you know, like what happened to what the fuck is this?
Yeah, because he says to, what does he say to Bucky? Like, I thought you were something, and Bucky goes, I thought you were skinny.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a great moment, and I also think that's the moment where Phillips buys in. Like,
yeah,
he's the real deal. He is the super soldier that we were trying to create.
Yeah, and it's the moment that the entire squad buys in, because we kind of glossed over this, but right before he finds out about the Howling Commandos, he's on stage and he gets booed and they're throwing fucking tomatoes at him and they're like, you're not one of us. There's this whole thing where they're like, we bring the girls back. No, we don't see you. Get out of here. And then he finds out. That's how he finds out that the Howling Commandos have been taken. But now he's done his Captain America thing, and those same people are applauding Captain America specifically, not Steve Rogers, Captain America. And that's symbolic of Tommy Lee Jones's moment too, where he's like, that's everyone realizing this is the real deal.
Yeah, it's more than just like this, and I think this will be important when we get to Brave New World, in a couple of weeks. Like the symbol of Captain America, like for real, not just like the public's perception with the, World War II propaganda part and the comics and stuff like that, and the movies that Steve was doing. This is like the actual soldiers know he's the real fucking deal.
Yep.
That's why I say this is where he really becomes Captain America. Is in this moment.
Absolutely.
And
I think it's an interesting
cameo around that time as well.
We get the what?
We get the Stan Lee cameo, which I'm not gonna lie, got me up a little bit too. When we get to see him, so I thought that was also pretty cool too. What were you gonna say?
I think it's also interesting because watching this now, where we are at the MCU and everything we've watched, it's very different from the first time I saw this because I know the future, and I want to point out that what they were doing with USA Agent was in the show that we watched him in, the Falcon Winter Soldier show, is kind of the mirror of what goes on here, right? Because here the military is like, you don't have it, we can't make you have it, you have to prove it, and he does. But when they have USA Agent or whatever, he's like, no, we've picked the perfect guy, we've picked the strongest, the best soldier, and they ignore the heart part. And that's why it goes wrong. So I think it's interesting that this through line still does play out. Like they didn't forget it. And that's super clever, I want to point out, because watching this, I could not help but think that this is the USA Agent's mirror image story. Like it's the opposite of what he went through.
Yeah, and it also lends itself to the moment at the end of Avengers Endgame where Steve Rogers chooses Sam Wilson to be his successor.
Yep.
But for like obviously because he feels like he has the actual the heart and the qualities that he has, and despite not having the super soldier serum, and also realizes like Captain America is a symbol that in the MCU the United States needs. Like he is that symbol, so it must go on. And he's like, this is the guy I'm going to hand choose as my successor. Then of course the government in the MCU chooses again their version of it. But you're right, they took the shortcut to it and chose the incorrect way of going about it. You're right. That's a really good point. We get the intro of Vibranium, which we know later on would lend itself to as a Wakanda Easter egg, if you want to look at it like that. The busting up of Hydra montage when they start busting up all these bases where Bucky points out all the bases is great. And I remember seeing this in 3D, and I can tell watching it, it was cool. It was so fucking cool in 3D, but you can tell this was so much shot. A couple of those shots were definitely 3D shots. Not to like Freddy's Dead version where it's like, ooh, look at my hands coming at you.
Right. But you can tell like this was meant for the 3D.
Yeah, which was pretty cool. We get the Zola interrogation scene, which I still stand by looks like the most delicious steak I've ever seen in my entire life.
Oh God, that steak looks so good. I was watching it. I was hungry when I was watching it yesterday. And I love that moment. That's some great Tommy Lee Jones acting there. And the guy who plays Arnim Zola is also really, really great. But like when Tommy Lee Jones comes in with the steak and he puts it down and Zola's like, what's in it? 100% US beef cow. It's like, so why? And you can tell, like, and it's some Zola thinks he's like trying to poison him or fuck with him, or even says he's trying to intimidate him. He's like, no, I'm not. And then he pretty much tells Zola, I let an encrypted message out. And when Zola says, he's like, you want that steak? No, I don't eat meat. Jones turns it around, fucking starts cutting it up and eating it while he's talking to him like nothing. And then Zola says, "Why are you trying to intimidate me?" And he goes, "Intimidate you? I bought you dinner."
Exactly.
That's such great Tommy Lee Jones acting right there. And the whole play, the way it plays out, this is such a very spy thing, and I love this. This at this point, the second act, it's a spy movie, like it's an old World War II spy movie. But he's like, "Well, I let out that we're gonna have to transfer you to this really nice place because of all the help you've been giving us, but it's encoded. You didn't break those codes already, did you?" And Zola knows what he's saying, and he's like, "I can't betray him. He'll kill me." And he's like, "Well, he's going to kill you anyway." And again, Tommy Lee Jones, that's not, "I'm sorry you're in this position, but these are just the hand that you've been dealt. There's nothing else you can do about it." It's a matter of fact.
Yeah. We also get from Zola a lot of insight into Red Skull, because he's just like, like he's like, he believes he walks amongst the gods, right? Like, he has the power of the gods, and his target is everywhere, and it's because he can do it. Like, and you can tell, like, because even like Phillips is like, that's crazy, right? Like what you're saying, like, you understand that, right? And he's like, "No, it's not crazy. It's because he can do it. Like, he can achieve these things." And Tommy Lee Jones' reaction there is like, "Oh shit! Like, maybe this dude is a bit more stronger than we originally thought. Maybe we were underestimating Hydra."
We thought this guy was a lunatic, but he's a lunatic with the might to back up his lunacy. That's the thing we didn't know.
Exactly. And that's why I was like, he kind of has a little bit of like an oh shit moment there. But yeah, it was so, Cap's moving along as well. And like, this thing's going on. We get Cap launches he wants to launch his plan to fully go ahead and to take down Hydra. And so, one more, once and for all, after he's bumped into the Red Skull, and they're chasing them down. And he's like, "Well, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take my motorcycle. I'm going to put my shield on. I'm going to go we're going to go kick down their door. Like, we're not going to screw around. We're not going to do any of this. We're going to go straight at them. And whatever it is, it is. We're just going to overpower these motherfuckers." And that's it. Because at this point, Bucky has fell off the train. We know that, like, Cap is distorted.
And that's what I was going to bring up, right? Cap before, but when it's him and Bucky fighting together, it's, "Hey, let's go on this homoerotic adventure together and shoot some Nazis together." But once Bucky's back in trouble, we're kicking in their fucking door and ending this fun over. Think about it.
No, it definitely motivates him to be like, "Listen, fuck this, man. Like, you guys took my fucking boy. Like, I'm gonna really take these guys down. Like, enough with this shit." And he goes and he gets captured at one point, and then we get this scene with him and one of the coolest scenes, I think, too, is when him and Red Skull are going face to face and stuff, and it's just like Red Skull's telling him, "You Americans, you guys are so arrogant and everything, but you do it better than most. I'll give you that. It's not just like an American thing." And he's like, "I'm nothing. I'm nobody. I'm just a kid from Brooklyn." And it's like, just further infuriates him. He's like, "I can do this all day." He goes, Yes, sure you can. Yeah, I know, like, whatever. Their chemistry together is so good.
It's so good.
It's so fun. And then is the whole chase scene with he's escaping on the plane and everything like that, like Red Skull, and the whole Hydra army's there. They're getting busted up, and then Phillips and Carter and Cap jump in the car. They go ahead. They chase Red Skull down in his own car, and then they have their first kiss. Peggy and Steve have their first kiss quickly, right before he goes
because
on the plane,
they know
and that's the last time they see him.
They know that's the end. And again, great Samuel Lee Jones moment. "Well, I ain't going to kiss you."
Yeah, scene stealer.
He really is.
Sure.
By the way, did you at any point expect him to break into the speech from The Fugitive? "All right, well, we got to find him. I want every house, outhouse, schoolhouse, hen house." I was waiting for it.
That would have been great. But then they had, Cap and Steve. Steve and Captain America and Red Skull have their battle on the plane. the Tesseract is unleashed there, and then we see Red Skull pulled away into, we're gonna assume was Vormir eventually and stuff like that.
What we now know is Vormir.
Yeah, we had no idea at the time because there was never a peep. But he got and was, we catch up with Red Skull many years down the line. And then the plane crashing happens, and as they're going down, you get that final conversation with Steve and Peggy, and it is a sad one where they're talking about they have a date and they should just, he should be there.
That's so fucking heartbreaking. Like, no, when he says, I'm going to need a rain check, and what's happening because she's like, no, we can talk you down. No, there's no time. If I don't act now, lots of people die, and I'm in the middle of the water, and this is the Captain America sacrifice, right? This is why you chose Steve Rogers. This is the fucking callback to throwing himself on the grenade. There's no way he's going to allow other people to die when he can stop it, even if it is with his own death. And we know, even at the beginning, we know he's not dead because they find him in the ice in the first scene of this. But what's powerful is he doesn't know that. Exactly. He 100% expects to die in this moment. And they have this heartbreaking, like, I think I'm going to need a rain check for that dance next Saturday at the Store Club, which was a real place, by the way. So glad they knew their history there. And then they're talking, and it's clearly they're building this imaginary date that's clearly never going to happen. And they sound so sad. The acting from both of them is so good. And then in the middle of it, he cuts out. And I don't think we see him go under. That's how we know he's gone under the water. Is his conversation with just cuts out. It's heartbreaking.
It is, and then Peggy's reaction there, and also we see like World War II ends at that point, and we get V-Day and everything, and the legacy of Captain America. We see the kids with the flag, the comic books and stuff, and celebrating, and they got the shields, painted as his and everything. And, he's, an American hero at that point. Like, the world fully knows Captain America is the real deal. Like, it's more than a movie. It's more than comic books. Like, Steve Rogers, Captain America is like legit. Yeah. And even Howard, when he finds the Tesseract, still wants to keep looking and searching the ocean to find him. You can tell it's because he lost his friend. And it's pretty sad, too, when he's doing that.
It's a great moment, too, because they find the Tesseract. And he goes, okay, go to the next grid. And they're like, but sir, we found what we're looking for. He's like, I said go to the next grid. And that's all. He doesn't say, we're looking for Captain America. He's my friend. No, it's why he's there. You know what he's looking for. And he never finds him. And you're right, that's heartbreaking.
It is. And I guess before we get to the end of the movie, I wanted to make sure that we also talk about Red Skull. So
yes, I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, before we get to the end, let's address Red Skull. Yeah, Hugo Weaving as Red Skull in this movie, like his obsession with the Tesseract that we see in the beginning of the movie, and how ruthless he is when he shoots that dude in the beginning, trying to find the Tesseract, and wants this power from Odin's throne room and everything like that. Like, he is fucking menacing throughout this thing. And even the way we see him in these montages, with the Nazis and everything, but then Hydra outgrows the Nazis and everything like that, right? Like their mission goes beyond what their thing is, because Hitler's about to fucking kick him out, essentially, and shut him down, and he's like, I've moved beyond you, and Hitler shit and everything.
Hitler's scope is too small. I love that moment, and I want to talk about this moment where the Nazis come to check on his progress. It's when it's what you were alluding to, when you find out that Hitler wants to kick him out, and he's like, all right, come on, I'll show you. And they're talking, and he pretty much tells them the plan. And they like, thank you, because this is going to make it so much easier to get rid of you. And he's like, we'll see. And then he fucking murders them. Like,
he counts them. Jason, he counts them. How many shots do I do? 1, 2, 3.
Exactly. Them. Yes. I mean, it's so good. And the one Nazi is like, Sir Berlin is on this list of destruction. He's like, yeah, it is. They're like, all right, you're gonna come with us. He's no, I'm not.
Uh-huh.
And it's and then you see that guy, the last guy, he's like, he just blows up.
Dude, I mean, granted, yes, he's murdering the fucking Nazis there, but man, he is so ruthless in that scene when he does it, and he's just so calm and confident about the way he's doing it too.
Yeah, and that's what makes him such a good villain. Is he's never emotional. Everything is planned. Even when he loses to Steve Rogers, he takes that shit on the red chin. You know, he's not like, oh, I'll get you. No, he's like, I'm going to go down with some dignity here. And I think I'm going to pause at this. I want to ask you this question. Mm-hmm. Do you think the Red Skull is the most evil villain we have gotten in the MCU? Because his whole plan is literally, I'm going to destroy any part of the world that may try to stop me from rising to power.
His plan, his goal is world domination. Period.
Yes.
The end. There's no, like, Thanos was his own twisted version of saving the universe.
Right.
Killmonger, again, was in his way, had a twisted version of, like, undoing, the wrongs and stuff like that, how the world has treated, again, his people and everything like that. You can see that. Obviously, when you go into mass genocide to get a point where you felt starts off with good intention is where you become the villain. But there's none of that with the Red Skull. The Red Skull is like, honestly, I'm working for the most evil dude the world has ever seen, and guess what? I have surpassed him. He's like you just said. He's thinking too small scope. I'm thinking larger.
Yeah, he's like, well, Hitler and I had this conversation. We said I'm going to kill 12 million people in concentration camps, and I went, really? Hold my beer, because I'm going to target all major cities, like, and then take over. Like, he's out crazying Hitler. He's out eviling Hitler.
Yeah, and I agree with you then. I think he probably is the most evil villain in the MCU because it's just pure evil. It's pure domination. That's it.
Right. It's not greed, because greed I don't agree with, but I get. It's not the Thanos thing where I've got this fucked up morality, but in my head I'm trying to help people. It's not the Killmonger thing, which maybe I definitely have a point, but I'm going about things the wrong way. But I don't know, how else do you fucking alter white supremacy? It's not. Who else did we get? It's not Killmonger. Not Killmonger. It's not the Red Dynamo from the first Iron Man movie, where it's just like it's greed. I want the company. I want you out of like. The only thing is destruction and domination. That's it, for its own sake.
Yeah, that is pure evil there.
I agree.
But he is the exact evil. He is the exact counterpart to Steve Rogers in every way, shape, and form. Mm-hmm. And and through their discussions, they make that very clear in this film. Like you mentioned, the super soldier serum. Inject Steve Rogers with it, you get Captain America. Inject, I want to make sure I want to get Red Skulls. Yeah, you get Schmidt. You get Schmidt here, going ahead and inject it with it. You get the fucking Red Skull. Like that. That's where this is going here. And I think that's a perfect counterpoint there, because then also, like, in the early MCU too, there was a lot of like good version, bad version. Which is fine. You should do that with a lot of your heroes and villains, but you just can't keep doing it over and over again.
No, I mean, but that's also a comic book trope. That's a literary trope. It's the hero archetype and the shadow archetype. And if you know anything about mythology and Campbell's mythology, the shadow archetype literally is the opposite of the hero archetype. And so many of our comic book characters are set up like that. Like Flash and the Reverse Flash, I think, is the one that smacks you in the face the most. Yes. But because it's literally what do we call the Flash's reverse Flash? Brilliant,
genius,
genius. But I think and we're early on the MCU. You're right. You couldn't do this all the time because it would have gotten stale. but we're early on, and we're still doing the origin stories. So we're early on enough to where we can go, okay, the bad guys are just going to be the mirror shadow image of the good guys. And we get that in Iron Man. We get that to an extent in Iron Man 2, which, when we'll discuss when we get to. We get that in Thor, as Loki is the villain of that movie, and not in my opinion, not anyone else. Everyone else is just along for the ride. And what else? What other movies did we get in this?
Well, you had Hulk and Abomination.
Phase. Yeah, Hulk and Abomination. That was the one I was thinking of. Hulk and Abomination. Physical for good, physical for evil. So yeah, they did a lot of that. But I think it works really, really well here.
Great.
Like better than it works in anything except for maybe Iron Man.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so then Steve basically we jump to the end where Steve wakes up, and there's I also want to shout out Bert for dropping in this line. I do think this is such like a really cool moment in here. When he wakes up and then Steve acknowledges the Dodgers game that's on the radio, and he's like, "Well, I was there at that game." That definitely didn't happen.
Yeah,
because like at that point he's in a Shield office building essentially, and they're trying to make it seem like they want to like ease him out of this because they know it's going to be a shock when he wakes up one day, and burst out.
And they're right. I mean,
of course it would.
I think they're right. Like the way they went about this. I don't blame them. I think it was correct. You want to, because Nick Fury says we wanted to ease you into it. Ease me into what? And then we see what happens after in the next movies. It takes him it's only at the very end as he's going out does he kind of adapt to this timeline. I think it was a good idea. Like, all right, we're going to set up a sound stage that looks like a 1940s USO hospital or military hospital. Yeah, we're going to randomly throw in a game. They don't know what games he's been to. It was just shitty luck.
Of course. Yeah, it is. And yeah, he bursts out of there and stuff like that. He's like in Times Square, and then he runs into Nick Fury, and he starts explaining the situation to him. You're right. He has the last line of the movie is, I had a date, but he's thinking about Peggy, and that's where it wraps up. And what's wild is, as much as the MCU is known for post-credit scenes, the post-credit scene for this movie was a trailer for the Avengers.
Yes, it was.
This was the last one that started the Avengers.
And I forgot that a couple of the movies do that. And this isn't the only one. I think it's the first one to do it, right? Like, it's weird because Hulk had no post-credit scene, but we all misremember Tony Stark being the post-credit scene. It should have been, but it wasn't. Then this is a commercial. I know what was it the there have been other ones in the future. Now I can't remember, but very rarely has the MCU used the scene to set as a commercial of the post-credit scene. But here it is, a fucking literal commercial, because the moment that we get with Rogers, in the gym, that's literally a scene from Avengers, right?
Yep. That's one of the early scenes of the Avengers. So, yeah, it was pretty nuts. And I still remember seeing this on the opening night and everything like that, the midnight showing. And like, wow, you got to see something from the Avengers. Like, you all knew it was coming at that point. But it was pretty wild to see the first trailer for the Avengers. And I think it dropped online like shortly after that or whatever. But real cool stuff. Yeah. Anything else on First Avenger before we wrap this episode up?
I'm going to say that this is probably the MCU movie I sleep on the most, and I don't want to do that anymore. I really enjoyed watching this movie. It's one of those movies that, and I know why I slept on it, because I didn't see it in the theater, and I had only seen it. Like, I watched it right before I went to go see Avengers in the theater, so I could be caught up. Okay. And I was so excited about Avengers. I was like, come on, I'm going to see the Avengers, get this over with. But now that I've seen it a couple times, and I'm looking at it merited as its own movie, this is top tier MCU for me. This has definitely changed my rankings. Like I think I used to rank this a bit lower, but no, I think this is top 10. It's got to be.
This is, I will say, I mean, I guess once we officially catch up to the MCU, we can do our official rankings. At that point, will be 30-something movies, at least rank the movies.
That's a whole episode into itself.
Yeah, I will say top tier MCU. I will say at that. It's definitely in the top tier MCU because it was so awesome to go back and be like, because Anthony Mackie actually mentioned this during the press recently when talking about Brave New World. This is old school MCU at this point because we didn't even say that. It's been a while now, so there's an old school MCU now, and and current MCU.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a lot of fun to go back with that one. I want to drop a couple of quick comments that Bird had here before we officially wrap up. Also agrees the Peggy Carter show was so underrated. I watched it every weekend. Yeah, so was I. Every week. It was on ABC at that time. It was a lot of fun. It was really cool, and she got her time to shine, which I thought was cool. And Shea Wingham was so good on that show too. Fully agreed with you there, buddy. And also had some comments. I hear that they are also doing Evil Avengers team that Doom will assemble from the multiverse. So Hydra Cap would be great. Even Evans can go dark as an actor. Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
If he does play it, it would be another change of pace for Chris Evans at this point. To go with like a Hydra Cap. So I don't know. I kind of wonder. I'm very curious to know how they're going to use the both of them in Doomsday. If they're going to go with that, or if we're just going to get like a cameo of Steve Rogers that we know of, maybe in just like a scene.
Right.
That's it. I don't know. Well, so many different
I don't know.
options.
I'm curious to see what they do with it.
All right. So then that wraps it up for us this week. Thanks for joining us as always. If you joined us on Facebook, check out our Brady's Peach Tea's Facebook group because that's where we share a bunch of trailers and other stories that we don't get to talk about on the show. Also, Pop Culture Pros, because that's what we are presented by, popculturepros.com. And on YouTube, subscribe to Pop Culture Pros and wherever you found your audio-only podcast. Granny's Peach Tea will be back next week. We do have a loaded show for next week. Our movie of the week will be Captain America: The Winter Soldier, a film that, to this day, a lot of people still say is the best movie in the entire MCU. It's definitely top tier, to say the least. So it'll be fun to go back and check that one out as well. I've seen that movie 1,000 times, so that will be fun. Also, we got another episode of Harley Quinn, episode 3, and we get the 2-episode debut of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man on Disney Plus.
Oh, okay, all right.
So I'm saying we got this is old school Granny's Peach Tea coming up the next couple of weeks where we have multiple shows in a movie.
Ooh, man, 3 hours. We're going for a 3-hour mark. Can we bring the news back?
Oh man, that was wild.
That was wild.
Yeah, so that was really wild. So enjoy your weekend. We'll see you next week. Peace.
Later.